Hey folks, welcome back. My name is Krishna, and in this video, we're going to take a look at drawing ruggedized vehicles. And the vehicles that I'm using for today's demo is from a user named An Improbable Future. And the link to their work, which is amazing, is available up here. And I'll also have a link to their work in the description for this video. So let's get started. So when we're looking at something like this vehicle here, it may be a little bit difficult to know where to start. So my suggestion is to think about the large, medium, and small shapes and identify the largest shape first. We're going to call that the primary shape. So on this image here, you can see that I've already broken down the largest block here, which is the body of the car. The secondary or medium-sized shapes in this case would be the tires and this canister behind the vehicle. And then as we start to move into smaller sections, we've got these tertiary shapes, which are the boxes that are on top of the vehicle. And then we've even got some even smaller shapes, which we've got this, I don't know what that looks like, maybe like a gun or a light or something. There are smaller shapes that aren't as important, but just add little, elements of visual flair, visual interest to kind of give us more of an idea of what this vehicle will look like. So you want to identify the primary shape first. In this video, we're going to look at largely side views because those are the easiest views to start with. So let's get started with that. So I'll start off by drawing the outline of this particular vehicle, and I'll just start with trying to remove any of the details and just focus on the body itself. I'm matching the angles that would represent the body of the car. I'm using my whole arm. And it's okay if your proportions aren't exactly correct when you're drawing this out. Um, that's totally fine. So I'm putting this line here because I'm thinking about where I want the wheel wells to begin. And again, just having the reference right by my view, putting it together in the same canvas makes it easy for me to see and make comparisons to check the proportions. So we've got the body of the car broken out. And I'm not really worried about details at this stage. I'm just identifying the structure of this car. So the next thing I want to do is I want to think about where the windows of the vehicle, the side view, where the bottom of those windows are going to be. So I'll just extend a line. Usually the bottom of the windows happens where the glass from the front and the hood actually meet. So I'm just drawing a line that extends back from the hood to the back of the car. It's okay to draw lines all the way through the vehicle because this is just an intermediary stage. From this point, I can start to add additional lines. And I'm looking to see where the glass ends. Usually the glass ends right before the wheel well. I don't have to be a 100% exact. I'm just basically denoting the measurements. And I've got, I'm not going to worry about this little smaller piece of glass here. I'm not worried about any of the smaller details. I've identified the primary shape first and foremost. Now I can start thinking about my secondary shapes. My secondary shapes are going to be the wheels themselves. So I'll just go ahead and indicate those wheels as follows. I've got this canister here. Think about the volumetric shape that the canister is made up of. In this case, it's like a pill shape. So it does have roundness associated with it. These dotted lines are indicative of that. Now that I've got the structure, I can compare and see if everything looks right before I start to add further details. If something is not right at this stage, you can always go back and modify it. You're just keeping your drawing nice and loose. You're not adding any details. Structurally, you just want to make sure that, okay, are the wheels lining up where they're supposed to? How does how do the wheel wells look? Is there a similarity between the reference and what I'm drawing? And for this reason, it's very important to keep the reference side by side. So now I can start to build onto the shape. For example, there's the roof of the car. I'm extending that up. And then there's something that is, I don't know what this is, but looks interesting. Some kind of a platform. And then from there, we've got, I don't know, some kind of a mechanical or electrical object here. And again, looking at the basic shapes. For the front of the vehicle, looks like we have something that's kind of dome shaped. And then for the other shapes, I'm not worried about details. I'm just trying to, if I squint my eyes, this is a good trick. If you squint your eyes, you're looking at the primary shape. So in this particular object right here, the primary shape is cylindrical. Try to identify that first and foremost. So now we've got the basic structure of this vehicle. From this point, I can start to add some details. I know that it's going to look okay when I'm done with it. So I can put this, I guess this is a hood. And then we've got the doors. And when I'm looking at the doors, I'm looking to see where the doors actually end. There's a little bit of a gap. I'm looking at the doors that I'm drawing here, and I can tell that my doors are not as wide as the doors that are in the reference, and that's okay. Just being aware of that is important. Now I can come back in and extend my lines back and draw the additional bits of information that I need. Now, there's also something like a motor. Looks like there's like a motor sticking out here. If I look really closely, this looks like another pill shape. And there we go. That's the basic structure of this vehicle. You want to make sure you get the structure down before you start adding details. The other important thing here too is even though this is a side view, what's really interesting about this and what can help give dimension to a side view vehicle is the hint of the wheels that are further back in space. So if I were to indicate that like so, and indicate the hint of the back wheels like so, and I can connect those together and create some kind of a shadow. So I've got the hint of those wheels. This type of structure is really important. So I started out by identifying the primary shape, drew the silhouette of the body, check the silhouette, and then alter things as needed. So I'm looking at this and it looks like I think I need to bring the doors out a little bit more like this. These are some smaller refinements that can accentuate the vehicle. Notice that I haven't drawn some of these smaller bars. Um, this needs to be as loose and as organic as possible. The issue that some people will have is when they're attempting to draw a vehicle, they will just trace the vehicle and it will never look like you drew it. It will just look like you trace it because you don't have the line confidence. It will just look flat. But here I'm thinking in terms of dimension. So again, adding those wheels, and then there's the wheel wells. That's the part that basically is tucked inside. And then you can always add other details as you need to. But I just reserve the details towards the very end. So that's the first example. Let's now apply that idea to the next example. So let me just hide these two layers and we'll focus on another render in here. So this is a more all-terrain vehicle. So how do I start? Well, in this particular case, I need to identify the primary, secondary, and tertiary shapes. The primary shape is the body of the vehicle. The secondary shapes are the two large wheels. And the tertiary shapes in this case are the cannon, and to a smaller degree, the second cannon or light. So how do I start with this one? Well, I'm going to identify the midline, which is basically this line right here, the start of the wheel wells. And that way I can kind of build from that. So I can say, because this is a very boxy looking vehicle. So I can extend that back. And it's okay if your proportions aren't 100% correct. You can always revise and adjust as needed. So I'm not being super precious. I'm holding down the shift key to make some straight lines here. And so this is the basic structure from what I can reckon, right? From this point, I can begin adding some of those other details. Again, identify the primary shapes and even the smaller objects. This looks cylindrical, so I'm going to give it a slight roundness here. That's the primary shape. And then for things like the smaller window, you can see that this window, the smaller window is a little bit higher up. And you're comparing your results. It looks like there's the hint of the top part of the vehicle. And now we can start to look at some of the smaller details. We know that there is some kind of a medevac thing or whatever. There's some kind of a object that looks like it's like some kind of computerized thing. We're just blocking in those shapes. We've got the windows here. So again, drawing the lines. Nowhere am I focusing on details at this stage. I'm just checking out my proportions. I've got this other cannon up here. Because if the proportions look wrong, it really doesn't matter how many details I begin to add. The details will just look, there'll still be something that is going to be quote unquote off with this vehicle. So here I've got the structure of the vehicle down. At this point, I can draw the tires. Pro tip here, if you're struggling with drawing rounded wheels, if you can't freehand that, you can always use the ellipse tool. I'll change the fill to no fill. I'll change the stroke to match, well, the blue that I'm using here. Set it to 5 pixels, and I can just drag this wheel like so. It may need to be a little bit smaller, so I'll transform it. Just get that adjusted to size, and then just duplicate that on the opposite side. You can merge those two layers in. And again, you can always then draw the hint of the other wheels and then draw your shadow, right? So this gives me the basic structure. You can always come back in with the smaller, the actual wheels itself, and then you can draw other shapes as needed. So this is as far as I'm going to take it for this particular demo, because this is the most important part. You can always come back in and add whatever details you need to finish this particular drawing out. But this is the hardest part to digest. When you're starting out with vehicles, think about the identifying the primary shape, the secondary shapes, and the tertiary shapes. Take your time. You can always make adjustments. Like in this case, you know, when I pause and look at what I've done here, I can make some alterations, and that's perfectly normal to do. It's not going to come out perfect, but it gives you a good framework to start that whole process. So if you found value in this video, please consider giving it a like, and that lets other people know that these tutorials are available for everyone to discover. And if there's another topic with regards to vehicles that you would like me to talk about, let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you for watching the videos. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the likes. All of that stuff really does mean a lot to me. And I will see you in the next video.